from Vienna. My colleague Florentina and I are very happy to welcome you here virtually and to share our experience on the topic of data-driven influencer marketing. We currently work at Ketchum Publico in the 3rd district of beautiful Vienna. Ketchum belongs to the international network of the Omnicom Group, while the Publico agency looks back on over 50 years of agency experience. And our agency is one of the top 5 PR agencies in Austria, and we get to provide strategic advice and plan and implement campaigns for our clients from various industries. But who are we exactly, and why are we standing here today?
So hello from my side as well. My name is Florentina Perschy. I've been working at Ketchum Publico for about 2.5 years now as an account director. And one of my focus topics that I have within the agency is, of course, influencer marketing, especially data-driven influencer marketing. I had the chance to be working with lots of different clients here, for example, Nespresso, Oral-B, Pampers, or the mobile phone company Vivo. And I've been doing so many influencer projects with all kinds of different brands. And this has given me the opportunity to also gain lots of personal influencer contacts in Austria, but also Germany as well.
Yes, and about my person, I've been working at Ketchum in Vienna for 3.5 years as account manager. And together with Florentina as well, I have many lifestyle clients like P&G, as well some brands of P&G like Braun, Gillette Venus, or Pampers together with Florentina, for whom I have also been able to implement numerous influencer campaigns. So that's why we are here, and we are happy to welcome you again. And now we can go on with the agenda. And for an influencer campaign to be successful, you need a very essential part, namely the right influencer themselves. And that's what the first part is about. A short excursion into the topic of influencers. What started with simple websites and blogs is now a huge business on social media channels. We have found some figures from Germany. Unfortunately, there are only very few for Europe. And there we found out that 86% of people over 16 use social media platforms. 39% are so-called heavy users who are on Instagram and so on several times a day. And 62%, so almost every 3rd person on social media, follows an influencer. Even 42% describe themselves as heavy influencer followers and follow numerous influencers daily on their channels. This makes this advertising medium so exciting when you consider that more than 3/4 of Germans are on social media and half of them actively pay attention to influencers on a daily basis. They have a friendly relationship with them and trust them, which makes them so valuable, of course. And now let's move on to the influencer categories. First, we have the small influencers like nano influencers, which have like about 5,000 followers and want to inform a small community about a specific topic or their personal lifestyle. We cooperate with them, mostly unpaid. Then there are micro influencers with about 10,000 followers, and they are part-time influencers and have a true passion for what they do and for a specific topic, of course. We work with them on a low pay basis or value compensation. So we send them some samplings and products for testing. The next one are macro influencers. They have about 50,000 followers. They are truly brand ambassadors and mostly interested in like long-term cooperation. And we work with them on a paid basis, of course. And then we have the mega influencers who have about 300,000 followers, and they are the true social media stars. So they are very own brand testimonials, they have their own brand and mostly an international community. And the last category is about celebrity influencers. They are real celebrities and social media is like a side income. They are actors, athletes and so on. And you can book like their social media platform also for marketing, of course. Moving on to the channels, Facebook still counts as the most popular channel here, followed by YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And a look at the topic affinities on the various social media platforms reveals the users' preferences that are particularly pronounced there. On TikTok, for example, it is cosmetics, fashion and lifestyle, and on Twitch, gaming and technology, and on Instagram, of course, cosmetics, fashion and lifestyle. And for the influencer research, we always recommend starting with the Instagram research. You take a representative from the target group and first look at which people they follow. Then you can use a professional tool. For example, we work a lot with Tagger Media. And on such tools, I quickly find exactly what I'm looking for. I can search by age, gender, followers, or subject area. And the professional tools gives me the information about where the influencer followers came from and whether they reach exactly my target group or how much interaction the influencer has with his community. And according to Brian Solis, influencers can be divided into 3 dimensions: relevance, reach, and resonance. This is also helpful when choosing the right influencer. Starting with relevance, this is about the trust of the community, how relevant is the influencer for his followers and how much can he influence them. In any case, the topics that the opinion leaders deals with on his profile and the brand environment in which he is already presented are also worthy of attention. So reach, in this step, the qualitative and quantitative reach of the influencer is taken into account. Both the number of followers and the image of the person behind the profile are relevant criteria for a collaboration, of course. And resonance, this analysis is very data-based. Here, the relevant KPIs such as engagement rate, impressions, shares, comments are used and compared with the planned goals, of course. It is very useful to have a scheme when working with influencers. When working with an agency, the agency takes over the so-called entry-level check, and this involves an initial selection based on the client briefing and the existing data of the influencers in the respective target market. Within the framework of a detailed evaluation check, an individual scheme can be developed depending on the project, of course, and points can be awarded according to the scheme, and thus a selection can be made. After the final selection, we recommend to have a personal conversation with the preferred influencers in order to determine the contents of the contract, like budget, services, buyout rights, and so on. And on the one hand, and on the other hand, to go in a personal exchange and to be able to withdraw from the cooperation if necessary after a sympathetic check, of course.
All right, so let's say we have found our perfect match. We found the perfect influencer for our campaign. What is the next step? Here, the data-driven aspect really starts right away. So I want to talk about goals and KPIs, because KPIs play a huge part and are very necessary for all kinds of influencer campaigns. So KPIs are helpful to measure things. For example, the reach, the views, the engagement rate, the conversion rate, but also a brand fit. Something that's super important here to keep in mind is that the KPIs are always depending on the objectives. So they cannot be generalized. You have to think about your campaign first and then set the KPIs that fits you. So for example, if you have a product launch, then things like your reach or the awareness would be very important. If it's an event or a bigger project, maybe the overall engagement will be your most important KPI. If you want to sell one specific product or you have a code for your influencer and a swipe up link that all comes together for your e-commerce products, these are the KPIs to look out for. Of course, you can also distinguish your KPIs. On the one hand, you have all the numbers, you have the reach, the impressions, of course, also your Instagram story views, the number of overall interactions. You have the tonality of your comments, if it's positive, neutral, or negative. If you have lots of feedback via story replies on Instagram, for example, like I said, very important, the engagement rate. And this is also something that should be evaluated ongoing during the campaign, and especially if you also have a paid amplification, for example, on Facebook, Instagram, but also TikTok nowadays. it is super important to keep an eye on that and look at your numbers, maybe even on a daily basis. And if you can see that the budget is not used correctly, it's also important to make sure and talk about this with your client to adapt this accordingly. But besides the numbers, of course, the quality is something that is also an important KPI, so that your content should have a high quality, that it also should always include your key messages. It should be authentic, it should be credible, and there should be a high quality integration in the content of the influencer. So let's say now we have our goals and we have the KPIs of our campaign. What makes a campaign actually successful? Here we have 7 tips to implement a successful campaign. Of course, it always depends on if it's long-term or short-term, but most times one of these tips are always super helpful if you want to implement your campaign. So number 1 is storytelling. Okay, maybe storytelling is actually a buzzword nowadays, but it's truly important to keep in mind when creating influencer content, because this is how creative stories can actually cause impact. And especially if you have a bigger influencer campaign with multiple influencer collaborations that maybe even convey kind of the same key message, it's super important that the influencers use storytelling to still publish this message in a unique way. The second point is authenticity. Of course, influencers should be always known for authentic content. Still, it's not always the case. So this is also something very important to look out for. So both at the beginning of your collaboration, for example, when creating the briefing, but also during the approval process, you should always pay big attention to authenticity. And if an agency is involved, like we are with our projects, it's also our role to always keep an eye out for that. Next point is the connection online and offline, especially events. So influencer events are always recommended, not only for your relationship with the influencers, but also for expanding your network. In times of COVID and lockdowns, of course, virtual event has also been launched, and it was a good second idea, but I think everyone appreciates the personal exchange that just happens when you meet in real life. Number 4 is transparency. So this means labeling. The labeling of paid collaborations and advertising is not only legally necessary, but should always be stated in the contract. And also most communities are really used to this, and they also demand transparent labeling. So you would actually lose credibility as an agency or also as an influencer if you don't label your content correctly. And transparency, but also applies to the client. So you need to provide them client insights, like reach or interactions, like I mentioned before, and should always be shown with screenshots and communicated very transparently. Next one is brand ambassadors. This is particularly interesting if you have a long-term collaboration with influencers, because then true brand ambassadors can be created. This can start with publishing unpaid inclusions of your products or a brand even outside of paid collaborations. Or if it really is something very long-term, you can even create own product lines for the influencers, and then they act as a testimonial. Next one is creating content together. So of course, if you have an influencer cooperation, it should be planned in advance, and the client should always provide the framework. But ideally, then you can design and create the content together to make it also fitting to the influencer's profile. Which is also kind of relating to the last point, is target group specific content. So already during the selection process of the influencer, it should be ensured that the content that you want to promote, whether it's a product, whether it's your brand in general, has to fit with the profile, but also has to fit the interest of the target group. Otherwise, it's kind of a waste of money. Then next on, let's talk about reporting and evaluation. So let's say we had all the steps, we had a very successful campaign, we included all the tips I just mentioned. What happens next? So after each influencer cooperation, either the agency or the company has to set up a report, and the insights always have to come directly of the influencer. So that means that, of course, the reporting can consist of screenshot or some kind of clear presentation of the results. It should also include the plan that you had. It should include your goal and, of course, actual comparisons. So what was your KPIs? Were you able to meet your goals, your KPIs, or if not, what was the reason? Ideally, a final meeting should also take place afterwards, because that's the best opportunity for both sides to give and get feedback. If the collaboration was successful, it's very often characterized by the fact that there will be future collaborations in the future, but also maybe the influencer posted even more content than you had stated in the contract, or there was like an additional unpaid postings or stories. But also if your goals were not met, which can always happen, there are different possibilities to talk about that also with your client and with the influencer. So either the influencer can publish even more postings, so many until your goals are met, or if you had paid amplification, maybe you can look at your costs per click or your return in investment even more and think about what could work better the next time.
So great. Now we want to show you some best case studies, and we move forward with a campaign which I organized in Austria for Gillette. So Gillette launched a product improvement in spring this year, and the razors and blades received a new sustainable packaging and were improved as a product. And on this occasion, Gillette also wanted to draw attention to the topic of modern masculinity in combination with shaving relevancy, because today men not only shave, they may also groom their entire body. Our task was to draw attention to the product improvements in combination with the very relevant topic of modern masculinity and shaving relevancy. We worked with 4 different lifestyle influencers, 2 male and 2 female. The male influencers already know Gillette and use the products on a daily basis. We worked with them before, so they are both a huge fan and their community knows that. As we all know, during the lockdown, shaving was no longer relevant for many people, and both influencers had to draw attention to this and motivate their community to not only shave because you go to work or have a date with friends, you do it for yourself. So what we did, we drive a conversation between men and women to answer questions from their community and to call attention to the beauty routine from men. Both influencer couples did it on a different way. One did a Q&A session via stories, the others did a split screen video and answered funny questions about men's beauty routine from female and male perspective. And it was a huge success. We noted over 45 stories and posting on Instagram and over 240,000 impressions. So the client was very happy, and we as well. And it was a great case for campaigns in Austria. And it also is a best case of influencer cooperation, where not only the product is the focus, also the different storytelling and them as brand ambassadors, of course.
Great, thank you, Vivienne. The next case I want to show you is about the renovation of the Hotel am Conciertos in Vienna, which is a very unique hotel in our city center of Vienna. So after a bigger renovation of the hotel, especially of the rooms, we had the opportunity to push the opening in this summer. So on the one hand, it of course was important to tell people in Austria, but also maybe in different countries, that the hotel was open again. It was safe to come after the lockdowns, but also, of course, that the rooms are now more prettier than ever. But the challenge, of course, was to do it in kind of a unique way. So this is why we implemented 3 different influencer collaborations, and each of them had their own spin. So for example, we had one influencer who is a well-known yoga teacher in Vienna, and she did a live stream of a yoga flow in one of the rooms. So in this way, we were able, of course, to show the rooms in the background, which were also shown in the teasers on Instagram and on the Instagram reel. But it was also a very authentic way of doing it, because she was doing what she loves most, yoga. And this is also what her community expects from her. And so we just combined these different topics. But we also used other influencers to shoot some great content in the rooms, but also in the restaurants downstairs, and just from every kind of perspective. And this content now can be also used for the hotel, of course. They can use it for their own social media channels. And they also had a big push over all these different profiles. So overall, we had about 55 stories and postings, which also included lots of unpaid postings that were not stated in the contract because there was just so much to shoot and so much to show, and actually almost 800,000 impressions. We also got really great feedback regarding the feedback for the hotel and reservations, and it really showed that even after the lockdown, hotels had just a big opportunity in communication. And I think it was great that we showed the opportunities that you have if you visit this nice hotel in Vienna. So we actually have included some videos of the stories that you can see now. So yeah, maybe one of you now wants to visit this hotel. We can totally recommend it. And I guess now it's time for the live Q&A. We are looking forward to your questions.